And we are live. Welcome back to another round of live Q&A. I'm excited for this one. It's been a minute. I think it's been about 2 weeks since I've gone on here and done a live Q&A. Last Thursday, I think I was packed with like 2 or 3 different seminars that I had. But going forward, we will likely be doing these on Thursdays. Around this time, or a Friday. It's Friday. What am I saying? I don't even know what day it is. That's what point in quarantine it is. But it is Friday. And we'll likely be doing it around this time on Fridays going forward. I'll let you guys know if anything changes as always. And as we're getting started, definitely be sure to check out hoopsquiz.com. Where's the banner at? Where is it at? Where is it at? All right, let me pull this up. One sec. Nope, that's not it. Here we go. I'm a little rusty here, guys. But hoopsquiz.com, if you haven't yet, definitely be sure to check that out. Take the quiz, get your free game plan. What the quiz will do, if you haven't gotten around to it yet, is what it does is it helps you pinpoint which one of 4 really common mistakes you're making right now. And then based on what the result is, you'll also get a free 3-day video series with a bonus 4th day with a little bonus special at the end to help you get going in the right direction. So definitely be sure you check that out. And if you're new around here, subscribe for new nutrition tips every week. It's now 2 times a week with videos, and then I'm going to do these lives once a week. So now we got all the housekeeping out of the way. Let's get into some of the questions. What's going on? I appreciate you guys tuning in. As I'm going, I have a couple of questions from Instagram, from the Facebook group as well. But as we're going, definitely drop any questions you have down below. We'll keep it going for about 45 minutes or so. I got a Q&A with the Hoop Nutrition program at 5 p.m. So I can't keep going past that hour. So probably going to cut it off around 45 minutes. So any questions you guys have, let me know. But now, without any further ado, let's look at a question from the comments. So the first question for today is, what are some good smoothie recipes that you would recommend that do not contain protein powder? I know protein powder is good for you. I just don't have it. So with that, the same exact recipe as a smoothie with protein powder, just without protein powder. I would say if you want to get some protein in there without protein powder, something like Greek yogurt, if you tolerate it, if you're not lactose intolerant, could be a really good idea to get some extra protein in there. I'm trying to think of what some other protein sources would be. If you use peanut butter, almond butter, things like that, you might be able to get a little bit of protein in there, but it's going to be tough to make up that same amount of protein as you would get in a typical protein powder. So it'll be tough to do that, but I would say the most obvious replacement that comes to my mind is some sort of Greek yogurt or some sort of milk, or I don't know if you've heard of Fairlife milk, Fairlife chocolate milk. They have like a high protein option, so you could get something like that, or just get protein powder. Honestly, I would recommend it if you can, but those are some options if you don't have it or don't have access to it for whatever reason, can't get your hands on it. It's not the end of the world. What I would do then is just have everything else in terms of the ingredients as you would in a regular smoothie, just don't have the protein powder. Definitely not going to make or break anything there. As long as your total daily protein intake is on point, you should be good to go. Not nutrition related, but did you see on your IG post for asking for podcast members, I went absolutely crazy, had a lot of people. Yeah, I saw that. I appreciate it. I'm hopefully in the process of getting a few of them on there. Some of them were some big names, so I don't know what type of luck I'll have there, but we got some pretty good podcast guests coming up soon, and we'll definitely get back to the live interviews. Going to try to keep it to the live interviews with guests once a week, so that way it's spread out pretty evenly. Because what I notice happens with myself is I'll schedule a bunch of guest interviews and then just go ham on them, and then I get burnt out from it. So what I want to do is schedule 1 or 2 per week max and not really go above that limit, which is tough because sometimes when you get like a really big name, you want to get them on the podcast. And I don't want to be the guy that's like, oh, my next available day is 4 weeks from now or like 2 months from now. So it depends on the situation as always, but in general, I'm going to try to keep it to about a once a week cadence for the guest interviews. So that doesn't include what we're doing right now, like a separate guest interview. So now that I think about it, this is going to be content going up on this channel 4 times a week. I already have one scheduled for next Saturday. This Saturday, we don't have anything, but next Saturday we have a guest coming on. So I'm excited about that. But yeah, any guests you guys want to see come on the show, definitely let me know. If you're listening in the past broadcast or in the podcast form, definitely shoot me a DM on IG at @TClarkNutrition. Let me know who you want to hear on the podcast, what topics you want to hear on the podcast. About to record Monday's podcast episode. I'm either going to record that tonight or tomorrow. So any topics you guys want to learn about, let me know. Same thing with YouTube videos. Any YouTube videos you want to see made, let me know. I'd be more than happy to dive into those topics for you guys. All right, let's dive into some questions. And as always, as you guys come up with questions, comment down below. Let me know. I'll prioritize the people who are watching live right now. So any of you guys and girls that want to ask questions while I have you here, comment down below, and I'll be more than happy to dive into those. Yeah, I mean, that's the goal, honestly. I want to put out so much content. That's the thing too. There's so many interviews that are such great interviews, but they're so like down deep into the depths of the podcast that I've done in the past or the YouTube videos that I've done in the past that that's like my main concern, but it's a good problem to have. I'd rather have that issue than not be putting out enough content, because if someone really wants to watch all that, they will. And that's kind of where I'm at. So it's definitely a good problem to have, but it can be a little bit of a concern at sometimes. All right, let's see. Let's get into some of the questions here. Pull them up real quick. And remember, if you haven't yet, hoopsquiz.com, go there. It's in the link in the description down below. If you're on YouTube, on Facebook, it should be on the feed. Pretty easy for you to find. All right, let's see. The first question coming from grind_city_2020. Don't know what the real name is there, but he or she is asking, why does whey protein cause digestive issues with me? And that just might be because you don't tolerate it. Depending on the type of whey protein, so whether you're consuming whey concentrate or whey isolate, it might be lactose intolerance, or it might just be an intolerance to the whey protein itself. Some people who are lactose intolerant but aren't intolerant to whey can tolerate whey isolate. Whey isolate has a much lower lactose content and a much lower carbohydrate content overall, because lactose is a type of carbohydrate, and whey isolate is generally a lower carbohydrate amount, and that means it's a lower lactose amount. So for some people, whey isolate can be a good option if you're lactose intolerant, but some people just don't even tolerate whey protein in general. And in that case, just go with a plant-based option. It's a pretty easy solution there. It's not a make or break thing. Everyone's always saying whey protein is optimal, and technically it is compared to a plant-based option, but it's not a make or break thing. It's not going to influence your results that drastically, if at all. So I wouldn't stress too much over it. But with that being said, something really important, a lot of people just take that digestive discomfort as normal and think, oh, I drink a whey protein shake and I have to go to the bathroom 5 minutes later. That's fine. I just deal with it. Like, no, that's not normal. You don't want to just deal with it. If that's happening, it's your body telling you like, yo, I'm not a fan of this. I don't want this right now. It doesn't make me feel good. There's something up here. So if your body does not respond well to whey protein, listen to your body and either go with a different protein powder option. So you can go with a plant-based option. What I usually recommend is a plant-based blend. So that way you get a wide variety of the full profile of essential amino acids, all that good stuff. Or you can just not use protein powder at all. Again, if you can hit your protein intake without using protein powder, that's fine. You're not missing out on anything. The only thing you might be missing out on is just like the ease from a logistic standpoint. It's much easier to make a smoothie than it is to cook a full meal. So that's the only thing to kind of weigh out. But if you don't tolerate it, if you know that when you have a certain protein powder, and this applies for any food, if you know that when you have a certain food, you got to go to the bathroom right away, or you're on the toilet all night, and you just don't feel good, then in that case, I wouldn't have that food or that protein powder super often. In some cases, you might have to make a trade-off. Like, for example, I'm lactose intolerant, but I know if I'm going to have some ice cream that I really, really enjoy, that's just a trade-off I have to make. For me, luckily, it's not like I have ice cream and I'm on the toilet all night. That's not what happens. I just kind of feel off, I'm like bloated, and it just doesn't feel good. But for some people, that is a trade-off you have to make. So there are always kind of, you have to weigh out the benefits and the pros and the cons of each situation. Like in some situations, the pleasure of having the ice cream and having that taste good because it's your favorite flavor or your favorite ice cream shop, whatever, may outweigh the discomfort that might bring you. In some cases, or a lot of cases, that won't. So you just kind of got to make that decision for yourself, depending on your goals, the situation you're in. Like, would I take that risk before a game or before a practice? Probably not. But again, it's case by case basis. I know we got kind of off track from the specific whey protein question, but I think that's an important concept for you guys to understand. But in terms of why it does that. It might be lactose, it might be the whey protein itself. You might just have an intolerance, and you might just have to go with another option there. Not a big deal, but just something to be aware of. And also, if you want to try another brand of whey protein, make sure you're getting a high quality brand. Make sure it's NSF certified for sport or Informed Choice certified. So that way, it's a high quality product, because you might just be having a cheap product that has a bunch of junk in there that is not making you feel good. So that could be a culprit as well. So all things to consider. All right, another question from Instagram asking, how much sugar should be the limit for a day? And typically the recommendation here in terms of how much sugar should you have per day is about 5 to 10%, depending on where you are. In the US, it's 10%. I believe in the EU, it's 5%. But 5 to 10% is usually the recommendation. And I will try to stick with that. Don't demonize sugar. I mean, if you have sugar, it's not like inherently bad for you. Large amounts of it, and like coming from processed foods and stuff like that, might not be the best for you. But overall, it's not something that you need to or that you should cut out completely, because what's sugar? Sugar is a type of carbohydrate. So depending on your situation, you might need that to fuel your training or fuel your performance in a game. So that's something to consider for sure. But in general, about 5 to 10% of your total daily intake should be coming from sugar. Or not, I don't want to say should be coming from sugar, but like that's like the maximum. If you end up at 2% and you feel fine, like you're not messing up at all, or like 3% or 4%, you're not messing up at all. That's fine, but you just don't want to go above that 10% range. And this might depend also on your specific goal. So for example, if you have a weight gain goal right now and you're struggling to meet your caloric needs, you might need to go with some food options that aren't technically the best in the world. And that's fine for that short-term situation, for that specific goal that you have. You just kind of got to look at it depending on the context of your situation. But in general, 5 to 10% is kind of where you want to be. Going above, that's a little bit much. Again, I'm not saying to cut out sugar completely. You don't need to cut out candy. And guess what else has sugar? Fruit has sugar. We're going to cut out fruit? Now, there was a post on IG going around, oh, fruit, the dangers of fruit. Like, that's complete BS. Fruit is not bad for you. If someone's telling you fruit is bad for you, run in the opposite direction. So just want to clarify that. But in general, 5 to 10%, you should be in a pretty good spot with that. All right, and that's it for the questions on IG. Not a bunch of questions, probably because I haven't done this in about 2 weeks, so kind of got to get the momentum going with people asking questions again. But let me go to the Facebook group. I know I got a couple questions from there as well. Let's see. All right, someone asked in the Facebook group, best diet for pro basketball players. Very vague question. I would definitely suggest catching up on all the YouTube content I have available right now, or the podcast I have available, the Instagram content in the free Facebook group. So that'll help you kind of get up to speed. Take the quiz, hoopsquiz.com. Also have the 8-week program that just opened up again. It's currently half off. So let me know. And anyone watching right now, let me know if you want in on that as well. I'll send you the link. But that's where I would start. In general, though, like the most general way I could concisely say what the best diet is what is going to have you eating the right foods in the right amounts at the right time. That's the most concise way to summarize what the best diet would be for anyone, whether it be a pro basketball player, college hooper, high school hooper, general population, someone's trying to be healthy. It doesn't really matter. The best diet is really going to depend on the individual person and what your goals are and stuff like that. So hopefully that clarifies it. I know it's not like the best answer, but it really just does depend on the person. That's one of those questions that really legitimately is, it depends. Now, another question from Ian. He's asking best foods to eat to build muscle fast, and what do you think about cmos? So I've seen that like cmos thing going around. I don't know what, apparently there's a bunch of vitamins and minerals in there that have some benefits, but I'm not quite sure what the hype is about it. I wouldn't get too caught up in the hype. It kind of seems like one of those things that that is a little bit overhyped. It might have some vitamins and minerals that are beneficial, but it's not going to be this magic cure-all that's going to solve all of your issues. So just be clear on that. But if you want to have some, as far as I know, I don't know enough about it to really give you a verdict on that. I've seen it pop up a few times on like my Facebook feed, and people saying, "Oh, I'm selling CMOS now." I'm like, what is this? But in general, it's probably fine. But at the same time, I know I've seen a lot of people selling it as this like magic thing that has all these crazy benefits. Be a little bit skeptical of that. And that's really my thoughts on that. And then as far as best foods to eat to build muscle fast, I actually have a video on that, so would 100% check that out. But just the short answer is there are no foods that are going to magically build muscle, just like there are no foods that are going to magically burn body fat. The driving force behind those body composition changes is your energy balance and also your macronutrient intake. Energy balance is like the most basic level of it, and there is more detail that goes into it. But at the most basic level, that foundation, if you're trying to build muscle and you're not in a calorie surplus, you're not going to build muscle most likely, or you're not going to maximize it. You might build some, especially if you're a newer trainee, not as much time in the gym. Your training age is a little bit lower, but there's not going to be a specific food that makes it happen. Of course, you want to eat the right amount of protein, right amount of carbohydrates to fuel your training, and those are like types of food. But I'm not going to sit here and say, "Oh, steak is the best food to eat for muscle growth," or raw eggs. You gotta drink a smoothie with 2 raw eggs in it every day to build muscle. Like, that's not how it works. The main principle there is, are you in a calorie surplus to build muscle? Are you in a calorie deficit to lose body fat? If those things are happening, you're probably in a good place. Of course, you want to dial in your macronutrient intake too, but I would start there. And also on that question of how do you build muscle fast, the word fast really sticks out to me there, Ian. So what you want to realize is that muscle gain is a relatively slow process. To a certain extent, like I said, eating in a calorie surplus, eating in more of a calorie surplus will result in you putting on weight faster. But at a certain point, once you go past that, it gets to a point where you start putting on more body fat than muscle. And you just don't want to be in that situation, because as a hooper, or really anyone in general, putting on body fat is not going to be an ideal situation. It's not going to help you. It's not going to have much benefits. Of course, there's an essential level of body fat, and being super, super lean is probably not ideal. But gaining past a certain point is not going to help you out much. So if you're in a crazy calorie surplus trying to gain weight super quickly, then you might run into a position where you're putting on body fat too quickly, and you actually just end up slowing yourself down more than anything. So typically, what you want to aim for is about 0.5 to 1% of your body weight per month. Again, it's going to depend on the individual. Some younger players can gain weight a lot more quickly because they're still growing, because their body's in a better position to put on muscle just hormonally. Older players or more experienced players might have more issues with that, putting on weight too quickly or putting on muscle quickly. It might not be as effective. So just keep that in mind too. The biggest thing here is just don't rush it, and remember why you're putting on muscle in the first place. So even though you might not be gaining weight super quickly, you might be performing much better on the court. You might be feeling stronger, and those are all huge, huge wins that you need to consider, because that's the priority here. As a hooper, putting on muscle is nice and all, losing body fat is nice and all, but what are we trying to accomplish by chasing those goals? We're trying to get you to play better in the long run. I mean, if you're willing to be okay with, okay, I want to look good, but I don't really care how I play, well, that's a different conversation. But if we're talking pro basketball player, odds are you want to maximize your performance. And to do that, you don't want to put on excess amounts of body fat. And you also don't want to lose a ton of muscle. In the opposite direction, people try to lose body fat and end up going into a crazy calorie deficit and just not being in a good spot. So hopefully that makes sense. Best diet really depends on the individual. Best foods, there are no real best foods. It comes down to the principles of it. Are you in a calorie surplus, deficit, whatever? Also macronutrient intake, nutrient timing. There's other components that go into it too, but I would start with, okay, how many calories are you eating? All right, let's see. Let's check the other Facebook group, see what other questions we got. Let's look at a question from Maddie. So let's go through that first. All right, as you know, school started for me. As a result, I haven't been able to work out nearly as much as summer due to excessive homework. So I've slightly decreased my calories due to lack of activity. Thoughts? And then follow up to that is the reason I'd slightly decreased my calorie intake is because I'm not burning as much calories due to not being able to work out as much. Would you say this is the right approach, or will my gains suffer? Another follow up to that, just don't want to put on excess unnecessary weight during this period where I've decreased my workout load tremendously due to freaking school homework. Yeah, I feel you. I'm not looking forward to school starting either, but it is what it is. In that situation, I think you're doing this, but you just really want to keep track of your progress. So keep track of your weight, keep track of how you feel. And there's really no one size fits all answer for everyone. If you're still training, you want to make sure you're fueling for training. And I know you train a lot. So when I hear you say you decrease training load, part of me still thinks you're probably training quite a bit. So you want to make sure you're fueling for that. Also, the priority really should be, if your training load is decreased drastically and you're really not doing much, probably focus on maintaining your weight. So as long as you're maintaining your weight, you're feeling pretty good. You should be in a good spot. And that comes down to tracking data. Like I talked about in that fairly recent video I put out, why your diet isn't working, like 3 steps to fix it. By the way, check that out if you haven't already. It comes down to tracking data, because if you're not tracking, then you run into a situation of perhaps over adjusting in the wrong direction. So because you slightly decrease training load, now you drastically cut calories. Maybe you cut too many calories. You don't really know that unless you're tracking your data. So if you're tracking your data, which it sounds like you are, and you're not gaining unnecessary weight, and also you're not losing unwanted weight either, you're probably in a good spot. If you end up gaining weight when you don't want to and you're really not training much at all, then sure, decrease calories a little bit until that kind of stables out. If you end up losing weight when you don't want to, maybe increase calories a little bit. So just keep that in mind too. Overall, I wouldn't overthink it. The biggest thing here is just don't overthink it and let the data guide your adjustments. So don't just guess because you feel like you gained a little bit of weight, make some drastic adjustment, or because you feel like you lost weight, make some drastic adjustment. Make the adjustment based on data, or don't make the adjustment based on data. And when I say that, I don't mean disregard the data. I mean, literally, if the data is saying, oh, everything's fine, don't adjust. People adjust for the sake of adjusting and it messes them up. It throws them off. Well, they could have just stayed the same because it was working. So don't fix it if it isn't broken. And if it is quote unquote broken and things aren't going the way you want, then make the appropriate adjustment and then reassess. Usually like reassess on a weekly basis. Don't focus on the day-to-day fluctuations. Again, those will drive you insane. They'll drive you crazy trying to keep up with those day-to-day fluctuations. So make sure you're assessing on a weekly basis or even a bi-weekly basis, and then just go from there depending on what the data is telling you. Good questions though. Good question. I think that'll help a lot of people, because a lot of people fall into one of two categories. And I mentioned this in the video, but they fall in one of two categories. Either one, they adjust way too often because they're just excited about learning about nutrition and they want to really optimize things, and they end up falling into this trap of just adjusting way too much, way too quickly before they actually give the plan time to work or not work. Or in the opposite, they follow a plan, the plan works really well, and then they don't end up ever adjusting. And then when they run into a plateau or things start kind of slowing down a little bit, not really seeing progress as quickly as they want, they just keep following that same plan. They don't make the appropriate adjustment because they're so married to that initial plan, because at first that plan worked. And there's this cliche, I'm sure I'm gonna butcher this, but the cliche I believe is what got you here won't get you there. So whatever worked to get you to where you are right now might not be what you need to get you where you want to be. For example, if you're trying to gain muscle and you see really good progress in the initial stages of what you're doing, and then it starts to slow down a little bit, you're like, oh, it's okay, it's fine, slowing down a little bit, but it's fine. My training age is going up. I'm just gonna kind of ride it out, which is probably the right decision there. Let's say you like plateau completely and you keep on sticking to that same exact calorie number, same exact number of meals, same exact just plan overall without changing anything, because you think, oh, this got me so far, I don't want to switch it up because I'm scared I'm going to mess up. Like, no, you need to adjust in that case to get you where you want to go. Like, what got you here isn't going to get you there. So again, people fall into one of those two categories, adjusting too often or not adjusting at all. The right answer is in the middle ground, and it's just going to depend on your individual situations. That's why it's so important that you keep track of that data. All right, let's look at some other questions. One second, guys. All right, one question coming from the Facebook group is asking, Can you drink a protein shake every day? Yeah, absolutely. Nothing wrong at all with drinking a protein shake. I'm a big fan of it. I would rather you drink like a smoothie. So if you're talking about something like muscle milk, I'm not a huge fan of those things. I would much rather you make your own smoothie with just protein powder and then add in your own other ingredients to make it a mass gainer supplement of your own, so to speak. So I would rather you do that. But if you're making like a homemade smoothie, like I do this every day. It's my breakfast every single day without fail. I have it saved on my FitnessPal. I don't even have to think about it because I literally have the same breakfast every day. It's a smoothie and it has protein powder. It's totally fine. So I wouldn't overthink that. I think it's totally fine. Just make sure you're getting most of your protein intake and most of your calories from whole foods. So if you're having 3-4 smoothies a day, that's probably not the best thing in the world. But if you're having one smoothie and then 3 or 4 other meals with whole foods, that's totally fine. So yeah, short answer there is yes, you can drink a protein shake every day, but you don't want to rely on it for the majority of your daily protein intake. So drink it every day, that's fine, but don't drink it at the expense of other things you could be having in terms of whole foods. All right, let's see. We got another question from the comments. Lewis is asking us, how does one count the calories they burn from just being alive? And really, the honest answer here is you can't. If you have access to laboratory grade equipment, then you might be able to, but even then it's tedious as hell to do that every single day. I wouldn't stress about counting the calories. This is, again, the conversation goes back to tracking data. So you're not really going to be able to figure out exactly how many calories you're burning. You can use an equation like the Harris-Benedict equation or Mifflin-St. Jean, I think that's what it's called, equation to figure out your total daily energy expenditure or your BMR. So you can use those, but a lot of times those aren't crazy accurate. Like there's going to be some error in that. And really the only way to know for sure is to track your calorie intake, track your food intake. I'm not saying track your energy expenditure, like that's different, but track your food intake and see how your weight responds, see how your body responds. So for example, to find your maintenance calories, so your total daily energy expenditure, which to be honest is more of a range than a set in stone number, but to find that kind of amount that it takes for you to actually just maintain your weight, and that would mean it's your total daily energy expenditure. What I would do is use one of the calculators to figure out what it should be, start eating that amount of calories, and then see how your body responds. If you eat that amount of calories and your weight goes up, you're probably in a surplus. If you eat that amount of calories and your weight goes down, you're probably in a deficit. You need to increase calories. If you eat that amount of calories and your weight maintains, then cool, you found your maintenance. You can kind of test and reassess every week until you find that sweet spot. So if you ended up losing weight, add 100 calories, see what happens. And if you ended up gaining weight, drop 100 calories, see what happens. You kind of repeat that process until you end up at a point where your weight stabilizes, and that will tell you what your maintenance calories is. And by definition, that's how many calories you're burning on a daily basis. Now, in terms of exactly tracking, like your question, I'm not sure if you're asking your total daily energy expenditure or your BMR, because you said how many calories you burn just from being alive, and that technically is your basal metabolic rate or BMR. With that, there's no real way to calculate or directly figure out how many calories you're burning without being hooked up to equipment in the lab, but you can do calculations. So that's where those equations come into play. So the one I use with my clients is the Harris-Benedict equation. So you could use that to calculate, but I wouldn't over stress about this specific number there. I would definitely just do the steps I outlined a few seconds ago and see what happens there. But let me know if that makes sense. I know it's a lot I just threw at you in terms of information, but let me know if that makes sense in the comments below. And if any of you guys listening on past broadcasts or on the podcast have any questions about anything we covered today, definitely let me know. The link to the free Facebook group should be in the show notes of the podcast. And as always, you can shoot me a message on Facebook or Instagram at T Clark Nutrition, and I'd be more than happy to help out. And I'm really going to make it a priority to get back on top of my DMs. I've kind of let those slide a little bit this week, just got been crazy busy with content creation, but I'm going to block out, I have it planned out. I'm going to block out a certain amount of time to respond to any DMs I get. So If I haven't responded to you yet, definitely follow up. It's nothing personal. Sometimes the schedule just gets a little crazy with content creation and taking care of my current clients and the people in the Hoop Nutrition program. By the way, let me know if you want in on that. But that's kind of where I'm at right now. Maddie, I appreciate it. It'll come. It'll come. I'm excited to be at 433. To be honest, we started out. The first month on YouTube was just crazy slow. I'd spend like 3 hours editing a video only to get like 20 views and like sick, dude. But now we're consistently hitting about, I would say the average is about 100 views per video, which is nothing crazy, but it's definitely, the growth is there. And like the people that are seeing the content like the content. So now it's just a matter of getting the content in front of more people. So on that subject, if you guys do find value out of this, I'd appreciate it if you share it on your Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook, wherever you are on a social media platform. I'd appreciate it if you guys share the past broadcasts of this, any YouTube videos you enjoy, any podcasts you enjoy, anything of my content you enjoy. I would really appreciate it if you share it on social, share it directly with friends, family, coaches, parents, whoever could benefit from it. And yeah. Yeah, Billy, you should have actually gotten an email. So it is week 1 of the 8 week start this week coming up. So you should have actually gotten an email with that. If you didn't, let me know and I'll double check that. There were some glitches initially with the launch of the program, like with the email autoresponder. So if you didn't get an email already, let me know. And you really should start getting emails as soon as you sign up for it. So, and that goes for anyone who signed up. If you had any issues with that technically, let me know. I'd be more than happy to sort that out for you. All right, let's see. Definitely makes sense. My body fat percentage is still quite high, but I'm only 17, so until puberty is done. Yeah, in your case, I would probably focus on performance and just kind of maintaining your weight. Because if you do that and you start performing better, you'll probably see favorable changes in your body composition. Unless you're like crazy overweight, then maybe going into a deficit will be beneficial. But if you're kind of just like in an okay spot, like not great, not terrible, I would focus on maintaining your weight and just performing better in the gym, getting stronger, stuff like that, because you're probably going to build muscle, lose body fat, being that you're so young. And then Maddie is asking, is puberty correlated with a higher body fat percentage? I'm not exactly sure what the answer to that question would be. So I don't want to sit here and dispute BS at you guys. Like, oh, yeah, it is. I'm not sure what the exact answer to that is. In general, though, like your teenage years are the years you really want to take advantage of in terms of gaining muscle and like building a really good body composition, just because you have the capacity to do so at such a high rate. So really focus on muscle gain and performance and stuff like that. You really don't want to focus on going into a cut as a teenager, because number one, it might just slow and hinder your growth and development overall. But two, even if it doesn't hinder your growth overall, you're really missing out on a prime opportunity to gain some muscle mass. And obviously, as a basketball player, you want to consider whether or not that will slow you down. So you don't want to gain weight too quickly and get bodybuilder jacked. But you can put on some pretty significant muscle mass if you do things the right way. And that's why I'm so big on the nutrition stuff for teenagers, because oftentimes that's the missing link. And where a lot of teens get messed up is that they see results from just training, even if their diet is crap. They see results from just training because they are so young. But what they don't realize is that they could be seeing much, much better results if they had their diet dialed in too, or their nutrition dialed in too. So if you're a teenager listening to this, get on it. It's super helpful. It's super important. And it doesn't really take much extra effort. Of course, you can make it as complicated as you want to make it. But at the simplest level, your nutrition does not need to be super hard. But really take advantage of the opportunity you have as a teenager. And then another question from Lewis asking, any way to measure food without a scale? Yeah, absolutely. You can actually use your hand to estimate your portion sizes. So for protein portion sizes, the size and thickness of your palm, not including your fingers, going to be about 3 to 4 ounces. If you're a smaller person, 3 ounces. If you're a larger person, go with 4 ounces. So for example, if I have a chicken breast that's about the size of my palm, I'm going to be entering that in on my FitnessPal as about 4 ounces. My hands are a little bit bigger, so I'm going to go 4 ounces. So that's one way you can do it. Another way, or another thing you want to use to measure is a closed fist. You can use this to measure out your carbs, your carb portion sizes, fruits, vegetables, things like that. One closed fist can be about 1 cup. So, for example, a fist-size serving of pasta or a fist-size serving of rice or something like that, you'd enter that in as 1 cup. Lastly, 1 thumb is going to be about 1 tablespoon. So you're going to use that to measure out fat sources like oils and nuts and avocados and things like that. You can use to and butter, like to measure out tablespoons, peanut butter, almond butter, stuff like that. If you can, I would recommend getting a food scale for when you're at home and you have more control over what you're eating while you're eating out. And if you want to track and the information isn't on MyFitnessPal, you can use those measurements you can use those measuring strategies to make sure you're kind of in the ballpark. It's not going to be perfect, but I would rather you be 200 calories off than 2,000 calories off because you just didn't measure at all. So hopefully that makes sense. And if you're in a situation where you don't have access to a food scale, absolutely, go ahead and use it. It's totally fine. What is nutrient timing? Is it too advanced for me? So nutrient timing is kind of a general term for worrying about things like pre-workout nutrition, intra-workout nutrition, post-workout nutrition, how you're timing your meals throughout the day and spreading them out throughout the day, things like that. So usually the recommendation for how to progress in your nutrition is, okay, energy balance, calories in versus calories out. At the most basic level, that's where you want to start. And then macronutrient intake, so dialing in your proteins, carbs, and fats. The micronutrient intake, making sure you're getting plenty of fruits and vegetables, getting your colors in. And then above micronutrient intake on the pyramid is nutrient timing. So if you've got your calories dialed in, you've got your macros dialed in, you're eating plenty of fruits and vegetables, then start to worry about, okay, what specifically is my pre-workout meal? What specifically is my post-workout meal? Am I using intra-workout nutrition? How am I timing my meals throughout the day? Am I eating right before bed? Like, what am I doing here? That's where you start to dive into that. So I wouldn't say it's too advanced for anyone, whether you're a teen or in your sorry, I'm reading a comment. Whether you're in your teens, in your 20s, 30s, 40s, whatever, you just kind of go through that progression. If you've got those other things down, then progress the nutrient timing. And Billy, it looks like you got added to the email sequence for the previous group of the 8-week program. So I'm going to go ahead and manually add your email to the current group. So tonight you should be getting an email with all the information for like the current group. Sorry about that mix up again. There was like a minor glitch because I was transitioning from the previous group of the 8-week program to the current group. So I'll go ahead and fix that for you either as soon as I get off here or definitely by the end of the day today. But Matt, does that make sense? I'll go ahead and look for some more questions in the Facebook group if we have any. A little bit of an awkward silence here, but that's fine. All right, looks like we're caught up on the questions there. Oh, did we get another one? Nah, that's not one. Okay. Can't drop a donation. No, I don't think so, because I think to monetize the channel, you have to be above 1,000 subscribers and whatnot. But if you want to donate in any way, the best way to do that would be just get the Hoop Nutrition program. And not only that, it'll help you out too in terms of your nutrition. So I like to put out the content for free as well. Like I'm never really looking to monetize like the free content. If you want to work with me individually or in the program, then that's where like money comes into the picture. But as far as like YouTube videos, live stream, stuff like that, I don't really want to monetize it anyway. But I appreciate the sentiment. And I appreciate you wanting to support. Really, the best way you can support is by sharing this stuff. So if you know anyone who would benefit from it, definitely be sure to share the link to this, share the YouTube channel in general. That's the best way to support that. But I appreciate that big time. All right. It looks like we're caught up on the questions. So if anyone has any questions in the live stream right now that's watching, definitely let me know. I'll give you guys a minute or two to type anything in the chat that you want me to answer. But with that, we got caught up on the questions on IG. A little bit of a slow day in terms of questions. I have a feeling that'll pick up once we get some more consistency back with the live videos, so I'm not too concerned about that. And then we'll go from there. I've got about 5 minutes, so if you have any other questions, let me know, and then I'll wrap it up. And I got to bounce to go do the live Q&A coaching session for the August group of the Hoop Nutrition program. And then, yeah. And also, if you're listening on the podcast right now or watching in the past broadcast, definitely be sure to check out hoopsquiz.com. Again, I really am pushing that. So yeah, definitely check that out. I would really, I'd appreciate it. And also, I think it'll help you out big time. So definitely check that out. Here before you get big, stay on the grind. Yes, sir. That's the goal. It's going in the right direction. The data, the trends are going up. So can't really complain there. Happy with how things have been growing and whatnot, and being able to collab with some pretty big names has been awesome. So it's definitely going in the right direction. Then now that I have the Hoop Nutrition program kind of unlocked and going to be getting more people in there and building that. So I'm excited. And if you want in on that, let me know. It's crazy. Like, the price is crazy affordable. And I know a lot of people that watch me are high school players and college players that maybe don't have all the funds in the world. So I try to make this affordable as possible, but that's a conversation for a different time. All right. One more question we're going to answer today from Maddie. And Billy, no, you're not behind at all. So don't stress about that. It's kind of, each individual player starts like at their own pace. So you're not behind at all. You're good. And then Maddie, is the first part of digestion when you see the food or when your salivary glands break down the food? Didn't really getting into the mechanism stuff here, but I would say from the classes I've taken so far, it starts in the mouth. So I'm going to go with when you start breaking down the food. Now, when you see the food, you definitely have a reaction. You start salivating. So there is that. But as far as digestion is the process of breaking down the food and whatnot. And that starts when you start breaking down the food, which happens in the mouth. Salivary amylase breaks down the carbohydrates, salivary lipase, a smaller amount, but it starts breaking down the fat as well. Then you go into the stomach, get the HCl breaking down some of the protein, small intestine, all that fun stuff. But yeah, I would say it starts in the mouth. And if you're wondering, what the hell are you talking about? You really don't need to understand that in that much detail. But yeah, it starts in your mouth, I would say. And your salivary glands themselves don't break down the food. It's the enzymes that are secreted from the salivary glands that break down the food. But again, that's like such splitting hairs that the average basketball player does not need to understand that. But again, the more you understand, the more you know, the more you learn, the better off you're going to be. So I respect the question big time. Now, with that, it is time to wrap up here. And I know you guys on YouTube, especially watching the past broadcast, as soon as you mention anything about thank you for watching or we're done now, people just automatically tune out. So before you guys leave, hoopsquiz.com, check it out. It's in the description down below. Let me know how you enjoy the quiz, how you enjoy the free game plan you'll get. If you're on Facebook, it should be up here. For YouTube, down here. But check that out. Enjoy, figure out what's going on, and start getting going in the right direction. And then, as always, I appreciate you tuning in. Like I said earlier, the best way you can support the show, support what I'm doing. If you enjoy what I'm doing, if you're finding value out of it, share it with a friend. Share the link to this video, the link to this podcast, link to any of my other stuff, the link to the quiz, anything like that. And Billy asked who's going to win the finals. Lakers, hands down. It's about time. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed. And with that, going to bounce out of here, hop on the other Q&A, and I will see you guys next week at the same time, hopefully. I'll let you know if anything changes there. But with that, have a great rest of your day.